What's up, everybody? Evan here for grips.com, continuing with Project Get Me Stacking. Today I have a question that once again I am very excited about, and it's something that I personally struggle with a little bit. So this was one presentation that I was extremely excited about making, because not only do I get to give you guys some good tips on how to approach a difficult situation, but I got to get some learning in myself, and that's always the best thing when you're trying to improve as a player, is to find a topic that you're kind of like, ooh, I don't really know that much about that. What can I find out about it? And then you go out, do some research, get to understand it a little bit more, and then you get to share with your friends. So I just want to put a warning before this video that I am by no means an expert when it comes to this particular topic. So don't think that necessarily these answers are 100% correct, but I think they're definitely on the right track, and they're probably close. And if not, you guys can tell me that I'm wrong, and I'm cool with that. So, question is, hi Evan, my name is Eric, and I have been following you ever since I started playing a couple years ago. I was your first student when you made the live coaching sessions over at Betfair, and I always find your videos entertaining and helpful. My question is, how do you play huge field MTTs, aka micro millions, in late stages when you get dealt rags for over an hour? Man, that sucks. I got to top 150 but busted because I blinded off and lost a flip with 8 BB left. For those of you who don't know what a BB is, it's a big blind, and 8 is not very many. My table was very aggressive, and I rarely got the chance to open with a raise, and when I did, I got played back at and was forced to fold my Jack 7, King 4, etc. Love this series, and I hope you will respond to my mail. Thanks, and get me stacking, Eric. And it's a great question. Like, I feel like anyone who starts in MTTs and doesn't understand the inner workings of them deals with this at least once, probably many, many times. You build up a stack in the early stages, you're cruising, you kind of lax a little bit. Next thing you know, you're just like, man, I got no cards. I'm getting short. Everyone else is building their stacks, and I'm just kind of dwindling away. What the hell happened? And a big thing is you took your foot off the gas pedal, probably. And in tournaments where the blinds are getting bigger and the structure gets faster and everyone's getting shorter, you're just not allowed to do that. You pretty much, once you register, you take your foot, you put it on the gas pedal, and you don't take it off until the tournament's done. That's just kind of the approach to going for the gusto and trying to win it all. But we'll go ahead with the presentation and get a little more specific on how you can keep your foot on the gas pedal going for that W. So how do we deal with a bad run of cards in a tournament? Because it's going to happen. It's bound to happen. And obviously, it sucks when it happens. It's going to make it more difficult to win the tournament, but something you want to be prepared for. And you can overcome it because, well, the big thing about tournaments is sometimes your cards aren't that important. So the deep stages of tournaments obviously play very differently than the early ones. At the beginning, our goal is to identify the weak players, try to get involved with them in high implied odds spots, and either outflop them or outplay them to increase our chip stack. In the beginning, you should be making a lot of effort to stay out of trouble. You don't want to overplay a hand and get it in with really bad equity, just be out of the tournament right away. It's a lot of post-flop play, and discipline and patience are highly rewarded. Now, as the tournament progresses, things change. It's not so much about being patient anymore. It becomes much more of a pre-flop game where the goal is to pick up more pots than our opponents so that we can grow our chip stack. Blinds and antes make up a significant amount, and a successful steal can mean increasing your stack anywhere from 5 to 10%, whereas in the early stages, stealing the blinds might increase your stack like 1%. The main message is stealing the blinds and not letting them eat you up becomes much more important. Also, being willing to take big flips in the middle stages and the late stages is going to give you more room to then not feel the pressure deeper and deeper. So you kind of get the gambling out of the way early or in the middle stages so that you feel a little less pressure later. Obviously, blinds are still going to get up there and you still have to keep up with the pace of the tournament. But the more you're gambling, the less pressure you feel. And I know it can be tough. You're like, well, I already like doubled or tripled my stack. I kind of just want to chill. Remember, you're still a long way from the finish line. So unless you're like really dominating, you probably want to take gambles if you think you can get into like a 50-50 or a 60-40. Um, with average stacks being shallower, people are less able to defend to steals. This is very important. They're less able to call with speculative hands, and anyone who is playing tight will simply get run over. Everyone who isn't keeping up with the pace of the tournament is losing their arsenal of weapons fast and becoming more and more dependent on getting dealt a big hand to bail them out and get them back in the game. You do not want to be this player. Since premium hands don't come around that often, you should be happy with getting hands like Broadway cards or decent aces. Remember, very frequently, when you raise, everyone will fold, and you will only put in a bet or two post-flop. In these situations, being able to make top pair is a very attractive proposition. And when you're playing for 20 or 30 big blinds, the value of being able to make a straight or a flush goes down significantly. So you just hope you get the big cards. When you get them, consider that to be a premium. Now, as a warning, this doesn't mean that you're just going to open every hand because people aren't totally dumb anymore. They're going to recognize what you're doing, and some people are going to be capable of playing back at you. Other players will not. So it's important that you adjust to your table and recognize what kind of players you're dealing with and identify the optimal chip-up strategy. Some examples. Is it a weak table where raising to steal is your best play and you can just raise every hand? Are people doing a lot of re-stealing? Okay, only open hands that you're willing to 4-bet over the top of their 3-bets, but loosen up your standards for a good hand to 4-bet. You no longer need, ace king or jacks plus. Maybe you can widen your standards to like sevens plus, king queen plus, or something like that. Maybe a pair or even a decent suited ace will fit the bill for getting it all in for a 4-bet. This will come down to feel and experience, and you really have to pay attention. And if you can, look up your opponents, research them, find out what level they're on. But I wanted to get you on the right track thinking about the right things. The next few points are covered in the MTT strategy guide, so I'm not going to go into them too much. It would make this video way too long. And if you haven't watched the MTT strategy guide yet, I would encourage you to give it a review. It's a lot of information. It's really not too long, and you can find it on the channel under the playlist MTT strategy guide. The main thing with all these bullet points is that you are going to be opening pots without strong hands, which for many can be an uncomfortable feeling. But remember, your steals only have to work around 50% of the time. So if one fails but the next one works, you're right back to where you started. You want to respect your stack size, because if you're stealing when your stack is too short and your steals aren't working, that's really detrimental to your chances in the tournament. So, if you're risking 20% of your stack on a steal and planning to fold when it doesn't work, that's really going to ruin your shot. Whereas if you're only risking 5% or 2%, obviously that's going to be fine. Likewise, if you have good opponents at your table, you don't want to steal in spots where they're going to play back at you a lot and you don't have a hand that you're comfortable playing back at them with. You got to anticipate the action before it comes, because in a lot of these situations, players are going to act predictably, and it's just your job to be one step ahead, be ready for them, and have a contingency plan for it. Also, you can't be afraid to go for a big chip up, whether it is a 3-bet all in or a 4-bet all in, maybe even a 5-bet all in. Or, when someone raises and calls, like a big squeeze that's going to risk like 8 big blinds of your 30 big blinds, but it's like a spot that's really likely to work. You just have to be willing to go for those spots. Even if they don't work out, it's not the end of the world. And also, if you build up an image as someone who plays a ton of hands and is willing to play these big hands, or these big situations without a hand, you're much more likely to get paid off when you get dealt a premium. This is a huge added benefit of playing an aggressive game late in tourneys. If, on the other hand, you are sitting, waiting for premiums, people will notice this. And when you do raise, when you finally pick up your aces or kings, all you'll win is the blinds most of the time. You will not get the double up that you need to make up for all the other hands you folded and all the sets of blinds you've paid. And you'll wonder, how do they know? How do they all fold when I have aces? Finally. It's because you haven't played a hand in like an hour, so they're going to figure, well, what else would he raise with? Now, it's a transition to not only play good hands. It's something that I'm learning to deal with myself. So by no means feel like you're the only person in this situation. It's a very common thing because tournaments are so different from, your home game or your 100 big blind online cash game, or the deep stages are just so different from the early stages. And it's something that takes time to learn, and it can be difficult to understand, but once you get it, you're going to find yourself making a lot more money and making a much more solid investment every time you do play a multi-table tournament. Finally, how do we do this? How do we overcome the mental boundaries that tell us, you don't want to risk your tournament with less than a premium hand. You don't want to be raising it up with two crappy cards because if someone plays back at you, you're just going to have to fold and, you weren't prepared for it. I know this one is difficult. And like I said, I suffer from it myself. You get deep into a tournament. You want to keep playing that tournament. You want to enjoy the rush of being deep. The last thing you want to do is get knocked out and have your party spoiled. Especially not with a bad hand, right? No, no. If you bust out, you're going to have a good story to tell your friends. You're going to be like, man, my ace king got sucked out by ace queen. And your friends are going to be like, man, that's so sick. They're never going to ask you, well, how big was the pot? And you'd be like, oh, well, I had like 4 big blinds and it was an 8 big blind pot. And they're going to be like, oh, so you were out at the tournament anyway. And you would have had to double up 4 times to get back to a stack where you actually had a shot. And what are the odds of winning 4 coin flips in a row? Just think about that. If you're someone who in the late stages waits till you get short and then relies on having to win flip after flip after flip to get back to a playable stack, you're really setting yourself up for disaster. Even, what are the odds of winning 4 70-30s in a row? And then you can start to get an idea of what kind of a position you're putting yourself in if you let yourself get short and have to do a lot of doubles to win the tournament. The truth is, when dealing with aggressive players, most of the time they don't have a hand. So it's worth taking these high risk plays because you get high reward when they work. And if you play back at these aggressive players, most of the time they're probably going to fold, and it doesn't matter what you have. The first couple of times it's scary to make a play with a weak hand, believe me, I know. But remember, even in the worst case, if you decide you're going to go for it in an all-in spot and you get called, you're still going to get lucky 20 or 30% of the time. And it's going to be for a big pot. If you're willing to reshove 15, 20 big blinds, think about how big your stack is when you win and what you can do with that. Even if you only win that spot 1 out of 3, compare it to if you let yourself get down to 8 big blinds and you win that double up 2 out of 3 times. What's a better situation? Think about it in the big picture. And maybe if you get it in with a bad hand and your opponent had you covered and you get there, you'll put him on tilt and then make even more chips in the process because he'll lose his mind and just throw everything away. You might also scare the other people and they'll want to stay away from you. The important thing, though, to be able to do this is that you can't be afraid to lose. Because if you're afraid to lose, you're never going to take a chance. And if you aren't willing to take a chance, you're not going to succeed in tournaments. It's just damn near impossible because for you to cooler everyone and win a 5,000 person tournament, the odds are just astronomical. And we need to be honest about tournaments. The reality is you're going to lose most of the time in the tournament. And it might be a flip. It might be a 3-outer. That's just the nature of them. You're going to play a big pot and you're probably going to take a bad beat eventually because you have to run so good to win. But remember, the goal isn't being deep. So when you get deep, you shouldn't be like, all right, I've made it. I've accomplished it. No, your goal is winning the tournament. So if you're always playing big pots, you'll need to win less gambles than if you play many small ones, and you have a better chance of accomplishing the main goal, which is winning the tournament. I know the idea of busting out of a tournament sucks, especially when you've been playing for like 4, 5, or 6 hours. But the only way to be able to win, which is the big goal, and the only way you can get like the big prize that you need to win to make up for all the times you don't, is to overcome that fear and go for the gusto. And it's not easy. And when you first start doing it, you're probably going to make some mistakes. But if you keep practicing at it and you keep doing it, eventually you'll get it. I mean, all top players, if you ask me, like Elke and DeGranu and Gus Hansen and John Jawanda, if you think about it and you look at the way they play, they're all very aggressive. They play a lot of pots because they know the importance of picking up those blinds or playing those big pots or trying to get a big stack that they can use to win the tournament. The only way you aren't going to feel pressure from the blinds and from the structure of the tournament is if you are the guy who's out ahead of everyone else and you're abusing them while they feel the pressure of being short stacked in the tournament. And you know, well, that's me talking, and I'm going to try implementing this now because it's time to get ready for the World Series of Poker, where, well, 6,000 player fields. We talked about this in a previous video. It's going to take a lot of luck to win something like that. But the more chances you take early and the better you position yourself by building up a stack, the less luck you will require in the later stages. And isn't that a pretty big luxury when tons of the remaining field are just sitting there waiting for their aces, kings, or queens to come around? They probably won't come around until it's too late. That's the reality. So, you know, don't rely on premium hands late, but be smart about picking your spots. Don't just raise the button because it's folded to you and you think you should raise any two cards. Look who's in the blinds. Or when you're in middle position, look who's on the button. What's likely to happen if you try to steal? And that way you will be making smarter investments with your chips and probably seeing your steals be successful more often and chips being wasted less frequently. Finally, when someone else is clearly out of line and fucking around and just raising all the time, don't be afraid to stick it to them. They're going to have enough chips to be like, oh, my steal didn't work this time. He can have it. I'll get back to stealing the next round. And it's going to be a lot more profitable for you to get those re-steals in than it is to get those simple steals because you're picking up like 5 big blinds instead of 2. Anyway, we're getting pretty long here, so I'll wrap it up. If you guys have anything to say about this topic, especially my viewers and subscribers out there who are tournament players, I would really appreciate your insight, and I'm sure the rest of the guys would, since you guys have more experience playing tournaments on the regular than I do and can probably help all of us out. Please post in the comments. Also, just, feedback, post in the comments, let me know what you guys think of the video. If you have any questions for Project Get Me Stackin, send them to evan@grips.com with the subject line Get Me Stackin, and hopefully I can answer your question and help you get stacking. Finally, if you're enjoying these videos, you find them helpful, please show your support and subscribe to my channel below. You will be the first one to receive these videos and be notified when they are released. And I'm just going to try to keep putting them out at a good pace because you guys keep showing your support. New people keep on subscribing every day. And it makes me feel like I'm doing something good making these videos. So I'm going to continue to do what I can to try to help you guys get stacking. And that's going to do it for me. I hope you found the video informative and insightful. This has been Evan for Grips.com saying peace.